First Responder Garage. This is a Mopar Magnum 360 with the trick flow heads and the Edelbrock EFI Victor Jr. I think it is. I don't know. I scrubbed off the name plates and painted it. But it's a Magnum motor, and I want to utilize the original pulley system. And I believe I've come up with a way for everything to work. And that's an ATI damper. Now, let's start with the damper. The hub for the damper was cut in the back a 1/4 inch. Okay, when you take a 1/4 inch off, it's going to move the damper towards the engine. And when you take a 1/4 off, it's completely seated and torqued. When you take a 1/4 inch off, that's how far you are from the timing cover. Okay, you got clearance there. On the other side, you have clearance there. I might just notch it just a little bit more, just to be on the safe side. This pulley is off an older Magnum with a Serpentine system, with a Serpentine drive. This one's off of a van. Doesn't make a difference, but I figured I'd just let you guys know. I got this for $45 on eBay. It was a decent one. I mean, the others were kind of rusty, and yeah, they're like 10, 15 bucks, but I paid the extra crendo for the better looking pulley here. And that is a stock pulley, nothing modified to it. So if I decided to go underdrive in the future, that's not an issue. Okay, now the next thing is the water pump. It's not directly in line. And I've thought about spacing the water pump out and getting a water pump spacer or making my own, because it's just, 1/4 inch aluminum that I can use in the back of the water pump. But then you got to worry about the rotor to the rotor spacing from the back of the pump to the timing cover. Now, if you remember, the timing cover is kind of recessed a little, so that kind of blew that out of the water. And I also thought about taking another 1/4 inch off, but that would mean that I'd have to notch the timing cover here, and then I would cut into the timing tab. And if you cut into the timing tab, it's obviously going to break through the cover. So I opted not to do that. Bottom line, you need a 1/2 inch. You could probably get away with 470, which ATI recommends you don't go more than 470 off the back of the hub for this style. And the reason why I didn't just cut the cover and cut the 470 and just kind of have the belt ride on the edge there, well, it's because of the intake. Having that extra 1/4 inch gap here, because I put a 1/4 inch spacer there, it's just 1/4 inch plate, actually helps with fitting the intake and the thermostat housing. Okay, you get that? So Magnum engine needs a 1/2 inch. ATI recommends not going further than 470. So I split the difference. And the way I'm going to take care of the water pump is I'm actually going to get a fan and that screws onto here. I'm going to cut it off, and I'm going to weld my my adapter for the puller, because I got a power steering pump puller, and I'm just going to pull that pulley off a little bit, and I'm going to tack weld that pulley in place. It's just a 1/4 inch. Now I have another water pump that actually I even thought about just pulling the pulley off and seeing how much I have to work with before I do that. So you'll probably see a video on that, but maybe not. I don't know. So I was just going to pull that off the hub, just a 1/4 inch, just to get this in alignment with the other pulleys. That's just kind of floating on there. So that's where we're at. If I can get there you go. Kind of, if you want, you can pause the video and look at that. 1/4 inch off there, 1/4 inch spacers there, and I'm going to pull the hub pulley off, a 1/4 inch, and everything will work. So I got my 1/4 inch spacer here, and I have a bunch of these plates from when I built my house. I actually have like 50 of these, okay, and they're solid. They don't have any holes in them. And I was thinking of just actually making a plate for this and bolting it to the head. But then I was thinking, well, metal against aluminum, maybe not such a good idea. The difference in, expanding contraction with heat, it's probably not a big deal and you don't have to worry about it, but I worry about stuff like that. So what I did was I went on eBay and I purchased 1 inch outside diameter, 3/8 to 10 millimeter inside diameter, aluminum 1/4 inch spacers. And I bought 24 of them. Okay, and I think the price was, I want to say $30 for them. So I'll just put those spacers behind here and get longer bolts. Problem solved. For the intake, I'm going to probably end up, a couple ideas. I'm probably going to make out of that 1/4 inch steel plate that I showed you, I'll probably just make something that goes over this and has the thermostat in it. Or better yet, actually I just might make a plate and have this just bolt to the plate, because the bolt's 1/4 inch thick. I think I got enough meat there to grab a bolt and to pinch this into place. If not, no big deal. What I'll do then is I'll put the plate on there, I'll cut the hole with one of my hole saws or the plasma cutter or whatever, and I'll cut this off right here and I'll just weld it to that plate. And what I'll do is, to fit the thermostat into place, because you got to fit the thermostat, it's got to be recessed in here, I'll just bevel this. I'll just put I'll make an angle to where the thermostat sits in there, and I'll use the bigger thermostat. And that's it. That's how I'm going to do that. I did have to notch this, and like I said, I would have just cut the 1/2 inch off the dam, because you really do have enough. You have enough to cut a 1/2 inch off the back, because you got enough spacing in the front for the bolt to hold everything in place. You have enough spacing in the back if you were just to grind everything down. Okay? And you'll just end up clearing the back of the seal. Okay? Just barely. But like I said, it's too close for comfort, and plus I needed the extra spacing in this top bracket to get it away from this intake manifold that I'm going to be using. Those are just the little spacers I used, and I'll get to that in a second. So what I also bought was 1/2 inch flat plate, 6 inches long. Actually, it was 12 inches long, and it was like $15. So I got the 12 inch long, 1 inch wide plate, and I'll put the plate on here. And what I'll do is I'll space it and I'll drill and tap to where I'll have 2 bolts holding the plate. And now the AC compressor can bolt to that aluminum plate. So it'll support the back of the air compressor. Now, why do you want to support the back of the air compressor? Well, it's very simple actually. Let me get over to the bench. All right, what you have here is the AC compressor to a 2001 Dodge Durango with a 360 Magnum. And what I had to do was, to clear the intake in the bracket, I cut off this last ear. Okay, now if you recall, there's a bracket that goes here. It's a triangular shaped bracket that bolts at the top of the intake. Well, that's no longer there. So the bracket on the intake is no longer there, and obviously this ear's cut to clear everything. And I'll be shaving down that, and it'll look like it wasn't even there. But what you need to do so the air compressor doesn't warp or leak is now, because I cut that ear off on that main bracket that bolts to the front of the engine, you now have to support the body, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to form a plate that goes over this, and I might not even form it. I may just space it out with some more spacers and put a flat plate. And the reason why I may do that is because then I can mount something on top of it if I wish. And what also you need to do is you need to support the back of the air compressor here. Now it's just a 1/4 inch. It's a 1/4 inch gap right there. And I'll use the remainder 1/4 inch spacers that I'll have to put under here, under the plate, however I decide, and that will support the back of this air compressor. Now, if you ever had an air compressor body leak on you, that's because the plate that some of these air compressors bolt to, like on the side of the engine, that plate is actually warped, bent, or cracked. That will cause the body to flex on these and these seals to blow out. Now, GM is really terrible about that because they have a split in their compressor. And the bodies, the separate bodies, will actually leak in a GM. So you need to support the AC compressor. This thing's constantly cycling on and off. There's vibration, there's harmonics there. All right, so you want to make sure that you support it as many mounting points as possible. And if you get rid of one, you better be sure to add a plate to stabilize it somehow. And I may just add something in the back. I may just get rid of these and put studs and put nuts and then put another plate here to attach that. Because I plan on having AC. I want to cruise in style, you know what I'm saying? I want to jam through some gears with some AC, you know? It gets hot here in Georgia. So that's that. All right, let's get back to the Magnum. So this is what I did to the bracket. Now, I cut the bracket before I came up with the idea of spacing it out a 1/4 inch. After I cut it, and I was going to keep cutting it till I haven't had enough for the hose to go into place. Well, I found out that it was going to be too much to clear everything, to clear the clamp, the hose, the elbow, and that's when I came up with spacing it, and it actually worked out to my favor. So I spaced it out, and everything just, it went into place. Everything just kind of worked, because now I have a 45-degree street elbow coming, and I tapped it out. That's why you saw that tap on the bench over there. I tapped this out to where that street elbow would actually butt all the way up against this and seal on the intake. The you know, where you tighten the street elbow, you know, it has those corners, that squared off corners to where you turn it into place. That's going to butt up against the intake here, and that's going to seal. I'm going to put some thread sealer on here. It's still a tapered seat, or it's still NPT, but right when that nut gets to touching the bottom here, that's when it starts getting tight. And I'm going to elbow that down. And that's obviously going to attach to that. And I have a couple more of these, so I'll just screw that into the street elbow that I'm going to be using here. And that's going to be brass. That was, I got 2 of them for $20 online. Again, eBay. And having that elbow there, it'll clear everything. And that's basically it. I mean, I got a bolt in there so the intake won't move back and forth. I got to measure my push rods so I get my rockers in place. And these are corrected geometry. And what I mean by corrected geometry, I don't mean centering the roller on the valve stem. That's technically not corrected geometry. That's only correcting one part of it. There's 3 parts of it that you got to correct. Actually, there's 4, but let's just worry about 3. And I'll get to that when I get to that. So, yeah, that's Magnum with the EFI Victor Jr., I think. It's this one, hold on. That's the intake. So I can go EFI or I can go carbureted. And I have a spreadboard to square flange adapter plate for the Holley 800. And that's it. Now, if you didn't want to use this, I'd imagine I mean, it just gets easier from there, but yeah. That's what I decided to go with. I mean, I even thought about just bolting this straight to there and finding a thermostat that'll work with this, but that's just not feasible. I mean, it just creates headache. So I'd rather just get a thermostat, the big bore thermostat, and then I can basically weld this anywhere I want to on the plate, as long as the tube here doesn't interfere with the thermostat and cut off too much flow. So I can actually position this over here. So I don't know. I just got to see what I got and work with what I have. That's it. There's pretty much all the alignment. All right. So hey, while you're having fun out there, go blow a gear in somebody's ear, huh?